I had a client this morning, one of the clients that I had, who was kidding around with me after session and said to me, Sven, I have never had a therapist who swears as much as you do. You know, she was kidding me. And I mean, she was being honest, but she was, you know, poking fun. And I told her, you know, I used to get that a lot when I was a pastor. I'd have people saying to me, you know, Sven, you know, they'd pull me aside, Sven, I've never heard of a pastor who swears as much as you do. Now, granted, I wouldn't swear too much from the pulpit, you know, the hells, and you can get away with hell and damn, but in counseling or outside of it, you know, if I was, unless there were small children around, yeah, I sort of just let it go, you know. You got to understand, you know, I was an athlete for years and years and years and years, you know, played at the college level and Division I, and, you know, I was in the military just for a couple of years, and, you know, I grew up around a family of brothers, and, you know, it was just part of it, you know, it was the swearing, and so it was a part of my, and still is, just a part of my vocabulary. I never bought into that bullshit school marmish notion that those who swear are incapable of expressing themselves more intelligently. I think that's just a fucking crock of shit. In fact, some of the people that I know, friends or colleagues or clients who are the most intelligent are often the ones who swear with the most flair. There's a certain delight. It tickles the tongue, if you will. Anyway, but I'd tell, you know, when parishioners would ask me that, I'd say to them, and I said it to this client this morning in a different form, but I would say to people, I'd say, well, listen, do you want a pastor who's a stiff or a pastor who gets it? And I remember even writing about it at one point, whether it was in an article or one of my books, and telling people that, considering where I was a Lutheran pastor, Christian pastor, considering where Christianity came from, this notion that everything is square and everything has to be perfect and you have to be upstanding and upright and holy and all that shit. You know, and I very much come from that background. And then I met a pastor my first year of seminary, Roger Bauer, and he blew my fucking mind, man. Fused the sacred and the secular. But I used to tell people that for me personally, if a pastor can't use the word fuck and the word God in the same sentence, I'm not interested in whatever they're selling. And I really believe that. And it was much more appropriate, you know, 20 years ago, or much more inappropriate 20 years ago, because the notion of a spiritual leader was still fused to this notion of perfect behavior and being good. And I'm not advocating pastors being bad per se, but there are aspects of that notion of you got to be good that are just fucking bullshit, and that cause certain people to disconnect from whatever it is you're selling. And so I said to my client today, you know, which would you rather have, a pastor or a therapist who's a stiff, or a therapist who gets it? And she's like, no, Sven, it's all good. I love it. But she was giving me shit about it. And it's part of who I am. It is, and I enjoy it. But there were many years where I really held back, particularly in my counseling and in my online stuff, held back from the swearing and tried to keep it clean. And in my books, tried to keep it clean. And I always felt like I was holding back. I always felt like, you know, sort of linguistically constipated, I guess. I wasn't expressing myself the way I wanted to express myself, is what it boiled down to. And once I started to just sort of let it fly and just sort of be my fucking self, my language, my way, not doing it for a purpose, not swearing for a purpose, but swearing just because that's what comes out of my fucking mouth. And once I was okay letting go of the people who would be offended by that, I got a hell of a lot happier. Once I was okay, once I was no longer afraid of losing people, or at least for that reason, once I was no longer afraid of losing people, it freed me up to just fucking be myself. And for me, and that's just one aspect of my life. There have been plenty of aspects in my life, areas where, I was tentative about sharing my real self, about really putting it out there, about what I call to be, say, do, and become on the outside who you really are on the inside. There have been plenty of areas in my life where I've been afraid to be, say, do, and become on the outside who I really am. And that's the difference between happy and unhappy. That's the difference between flow and spiritual constipation. Do you have the guts to put out there who you really are in here? And that's what it means to live an integrated life. To be integrated means that my exterior life is a reflection of my interior life. And that takes guts. It really does. And there are always new ways. Even now, I haven't been doing this shit my whole life. There are times even now in my life where I'm like, oh, do I really want to show that? It's like, fuck that. That's just fear talking. And the more fear is running your life, the less happiness has room. Fear and happiness are inversely correlated. The more fear you have, the less happiness you're going to have. The more happiness you have, the less fear you're going to have. It takes the courage to pass through those fears and to reveal to the world, to have the courage to show to the world that which you've been hiding, that's which you've been keeping hidden. It takes the courage to put myself out there in all of my forms. And think about it, for me as a pastor, I was selling this product that had no taste, touch, smell, anything. I'm selling God, which is a very hard sell, especially in the culture that, we exist in. But to do anything that comes across as impure when you're selling a product that most people equate with, oh, you have to be pure and perfect, to come off as impure seems crazy to a lot of people. But what I discovered was the more I had the courage to show my impurities, the more I had the courage to be my real self, to be real and not just bullshit spirituality crap. The more I had the courage to do that, the more weight any wisdom I had acquired, or the more weight my spiritual beliefs and insights carried. The more I had the courage to be real, my real me, the more people were open to what I had to say. Isn't that interesting? The very thing that derailed, or one of the very things that derailed my career in terms of staying inside the institution, in fact, caused my career to flourish outside the institution. Think about that. Would you engage in an aspect of who you are if you knew it would cost you the security of where you are now? Right? It's hard to let go of security, isn't it? I mean, we cling to that which is secure. But would you let go of your security? No, even if you didn't know that you were going to have the success afterwards, would you let go of the security, or at least start with some of the security, if it meant you being more fully you? I personally believe, and I've seen it in my life, I've seen it in friends and family, and I've seen it in thousands of clients over the years, that the people who have the courage to become their real selves find extraordinary happiness, extraordinary success in ways they couldn't have imagined back when they were part of the institution, or back when they were part of that limited thinking that said they had to be a certain way. When you break out of that, when you have the courage to fully expand and fly at full wingspan rather than with clipped wings, when you have the courage to fly at full wingspan as a full expression of who you are, doors begin to open, things begin to happen, shit starts to fall out of the sky, good shit. And on top of it, you feel like you're finally becoming your truest self. So that's my challenge to you today. If you have the courage to look at and first ask yourself, what aspects of me am I withholding, am I hiding under a basket? What aspects of me am I afraid to show to the world? So one, identify the things that you're withholding out of fear. Identify. And then two, do you have the courage to begin to show the world who the fuck you really are? Because God didn't make you, if you believe in God or the universe or whatever, didn't make you to be some altered version of yourself, but to be your authentic self. Fucking bugs. Joy is on the other side of having the courage to show the world who you really are. I can tell you that as a matter of absolute fact. And so my challenge to you today is, one, identify the aspects of you that you're not showing the world. Two, ask yourself, what is the single greatest fear holding me back from showing that, from being, saying, and doing and becoming who I really am on the outside? What's the biggest fear? Three, do you have the courage to push through that fear and become and express who the fuck you really are? That's the challenge today. So have a kick-ass day, and I will see you again soon.